Good afternoon, all. Thank you very much for joining today's webinar. Today we will be looking at PowerPoint. I'd just like to take this opportunity to say on behalf of Solutions IT, I'd like to welcome you to today, and also to say a big thank you to Standout Education for putting on this all of these PDs and making the time for doing that. Today we have Steve Sockers. He is going to be the presenter, and Stephen Payne will be moderating the Q&A with me. I'll hand over to you now, Steve.
Thank you, Sarah, and thanks to Steve for moderating on the side there. So yes, welcome everyone from wherever you are completing this webinar. Some of you are at work and some at home, and I'm running this from my apartment in South Perth. So thanks for coming along and making time. Throughout the session, you're going to see the Q&A as a chance for you to jump in and ask questions, and Sarah and Steve will do their best to answer them on the fly, and then we'll also use that as a place where we can share some resources with you. And pretty much all of the resources, including video-based tutorials on everything you're going to see today, will be in that chat area. So let's make a bit of a start, and maybe the first thing I'm going to talk about before I launch in and start showing you how we can create some brilliant resources for our kids, and not only one that we're forced into because of the situation around remote learning, but hopefully this will kickstart many of you to create many fantastic resources that you can keep and use in future years. So before I jump in and start tweaking on this particular PowerPoint, I'm going to talk about some of the things and features that we're going to look at. The first one is I'm going to be looking at the screen recording feature, and that is under the Insert tab. Now, through parts of today, just in case your PowerPoint does not have the same sort of buttons or layout that mine does, I know that, for instance, if I was to minimize just change this particular PowerPoint, you can see how now it's in this window that it's actually squashed up my my buttons, and therefore where I'm going to be directing you is going to be hidden under a media tab. So for some of you, if you don't see buttons, it's maybe because of the resolution on your monitor, and for some of you it may be because of the version of PowerPoint that you're running. So in any case, feel free to jump in the Q&A and get some direction, but some of you may need to be trying to look for the updated version of PowerPoint to use most of the features we're looking at. So here's a PowerPoint that I've used in the past. It's actually not one of mine, it's one that I inherited, and maybe before I go ahead and turn this into a screen recording or turn this into a recording, I will probably point out one of the features that is available to us is under the Design tab. If you've got a PowerPoint that's been saved as the latest version of a PowerPoint file, you're going to see, or you might automatically be prompted to have a Design Ideas tab. And on that tab is essentially graphically designed slides that will quickly rearrange your slides, which might be looking a little bit tired and a little bit old, into a different format. So if you like the look of some of these, I dare say spend a few minutes and just refresh your PowerPoints before you go and create these resources that you can use into the future. So I mentioned I was going to launch into the screen recording. So right now I'm just giving myself a blank PowerPoint slide. Close the Design Ideas, and I'll start with the screen capturing. So screen capturing is under the Insert tab, and it might be under the Insert Media tab, but for me it's exposed and sets as a screen record. So I'll click on that. I hope you appreciate that I've actually gone into my settings for my mouse and made things extra large, and maybe something you can consider doing when you're making your screen captures, because therefore kids can see where you're clicking things. But right now my screen has actually gone a little bit cloudy. I'm not sure if you can see it, and I'm then prompted to highlight whatever it is I want to record. Now, once I've actually got that recording area, you'll see that I now have the ability to record. So if I click on that, it's actually going to count me down to 3, 2, 1, and now it's pretty much recording my audio and anything I do on screen. So for instance, if I was to make a video on getting people to go to the Microsoft Education Centre. Everywhere I click right now is being recorded. So I tell staff, hey, look, if you want more training around PowerPoint, OneNote, Teams, then please make your way to education.microsoft.com. I can then go through and keep recording directions or visiting websites. I can then also launch a OneNote file and go to some resources or explain the lesson that we're looking at today. So again, whatever I'm doing is happening in that space. The beautiful thing about this tool as well is because it's recording everything on screen, it's still capturing it now. I'm actually going to launch a blank OneNote page, and you can see there I've labelled it Screen Capture Demo. And it might be that I'm going to use the maths tool and annotate on screen, and I'll just put an equation there, scribbling that on screen. So there's my equation, and I'm going to circle that and highlight it and then convert that to math. So I'm sneaking in an extra little bit of PD about the beautiful things that happen in OneNote. So here we go, solve for x. X is 44, and we're going to look at the steps for solving linear equation. I'm actually going to drag that out. So I'm making a video resource for students to use, and at the very conclusion of your video and everything you've chosen to record, you bring your mouse up to the very top, and that's going to, oops, sorry, let me just bring that back into here, and I need to pin this so you don't see it. Okay, you see that I can stop recording on screen. So then that video, everything I've shot, now is wrapped up in a video. And if I fast forward into that video and talk, look at the animation, you'll see that, as I wrote things, as I wrote everything, it all is captured in the PowerPoint. So again, you can pretty much launch this to make a screen capture on anything. You could have gone to Minecraft, websites, YouTube, you name it, you can just record. Now, once it's actually here in this space, then you essentially have got a PowerPoint with a video embedded in it. And at this point, you can put that on your OneDrive, you can put it on Connect. Kids will launch it as a PowerPoint, but then they'll click on play and watch the video inside it. You do also have the ability to right click on the video. If I right click on that, and it's got a save media as tab, which if I click on that will allow me to extract this video and save it as an MP4 file. And therefore it maybe can go to a YouTube channel, whatever it might do. But you've got a bit more functionality, I suppose, when you extract it as an MP4 file. But for the most part, we want to keep things simple. So feel free just to go File, Save As, put that somewhere on your OneDrive and share it, and or save it and put it on Connect. So feel free to leave that video in your PowerPoint. Now, a couple other features that are there under the playback tab up the very top. This playback tab will only appear if your video is selected. So if I was to click off screen, you notice I don't have a playback tab anymore. But when I select that video, my playback tab is there, and let's have a look at what I can do. And the first one is I can trim it. So trimming essentially lets you do the bookends. So the bookends, if I say, yeah, look, don't capture all that part until I maybe started capturing the part where I was on the MEC website. And so I can trim sections. It won't let me cut bits out of the middle, but don't be too fussed by that. You can obviously reshoot your video if you make errors in between, but basic bookend editing is there. So I might just click OK on that, and it will quickly tweak and change that video. Other things which come in handy, fade in, fade out, probably more to do with music and stuff. I don't want to care too much about that, but just in case you did make a video and you play it back and you're thinking, hang on, I don't sound like I'm loud enough, maybe because when you shot the video, you'll realize is a almost best practice, and that's just to give some thought about your proximity to where you're speaking in relation to your computer's microphone. But I can turn the volume down or make myself lower if I'm too loud and the like. Play full screen just basically means that when kids go to play, rather than having this white space around the video will launch to full screen if you leave it in a PowerPoint. And some of the other options are there. This is interesting to just highlight. Because obviously a lot of noise is being made about us making resources that are future-proof, particularly around inclusive education. So looking at inserting captions is something you can do and look for files around that. But for the most part, you can ignore that, and that in essence is screen capturing on videos. Before I launch into the next feature that we're going to look at, which is the recording tab, which does let you put a bit more polish on existing PowerPoints, I might just pause there and let Steve and Sarah jump in, just see if there's any questions on anything on screen capturing. Steve. Yep. Hi, Steve.
Can you just remind us which tab you were on to get this recording tool?
Okay, so I'm going to just, you can see my screen now. So everything's under the Insert tab. So it's under Insert, and if you look at the names across the Insert tab, you want to be finding a Media tab. And as I mentioned before, and I don't know if people joined us late, but in case your screen resolution is lower, you'll see that when I intentionally sort of made my screen smaller for PowerPoint, you notice that it's under a Media button. So some people might see it under a Media button and screen recording. There wouldn't be too many people that wouldn't see it at all. And if you do see it, or you don't see it at all, it probably does mean that you're on a really old version of PowerPoint and you are in need to upgrade it. I'm not sure, Steve, if you want me to cover upgrading or updating Office, but obviously people in the education department, please know that the department does control which updates get pushed out. So I'm hoping most of you or a majority of you have the screen recording capability, but I'm hoping I've answered that question.
So yeah, a couple of people asked about how do I know whether I have the latest update of PowerPoint. So I think the only way you can really know is if you go to office.com and you download PowerPoint yourself. You'll always have the latest one. If it's managed by a school or by the department, then you're likely to have one that's a little bit behind. That's just the advice I would say there.
Yeah, and I might just add to that, if people are using office.com for their home computer, one of the ways I always check to know that I've got the latest copy running on my home device is I've clicked on File up the very top and then selected my account. And on this particular tab, you'll see your account and the subscription to Office 365, and then you'll see an update option. So some of you on your personal devices might see that feature and be able to run an update if you can see that. And then this area also has what build. So people checking, I can see that I'm on version 2003 and build number. And so, as Steve mentioned before, you can go online and see what number is the current version, and let's see what we can do about upgrading people's versions of Office 365. Okay, happy to soldier on with the recording tab.
Yeah, just a couple of things. Can you? Actually, no. We'll come to some. What we'll do is we'll just leave the questions to the end because they're quite specific. You just carry on, Steve. Thanks.
Sure. Perfect. All right. So that was obviously a screen capture, and I just launched a file anew and launched a brand new presentation to do that. Let's move on now to what do we do about existing PowerPoints and creating a video resource around that. So to do that, I'm just going to close this one and I won't save it. And I'll find that presentation that I had about the heart and the circulatory system. So before I mentioned that, obviously we had the design tab and the future-proof this. I'll ignore that for now, but pretend, for instance, you go through and you tweak all your videos and your slides to be a bit more better looking with the layout. We are going to look at the recording tab across the very top of your screen. Now, my experience is that every time I go to show people this particular feature, people are saying, I don't see a recording tab. And for many of you, it actually does exist. It's just not visible on the top of your navigation. So there is a solution to this, and I will post some resources for people who might miss this step, and I'll try to take it as slow as I possibly can so that those who are looking at PowerPoint can activate this tab and have a play at the conclusion of this, this seminar or this webinar. And that is to go to File. Okay, so when you got the File option or the File tab selected, you'll need to find Options at the very bottom left of screen, and that will then open up a PowerPoint options box. Now, where we want to focus your attention right now is the Customize Ribbon option, and this is where on the right of this particular panel, you'll see all the tabs that are selected that you can see. Most of you, if you scroll down, I'm suggesting that for many of you, that tab will actually be unchecked. And so right now, I'd be recommending that you check it, and it's something you only have to do once and then click OK. And then we have access to a recording tab. Okay, so we're going to go through a little demo of how this particular tab works. And so when you launch the recording tab and I click on Record Show, this is now going to open up a screen which I can see a record, stop and a replay. I can look at the notes if I've got notes on the slide, and then down the very bottom we've got some annotating tools. Now I'm using a Surface Pro with a pen-enabled device, so I can use these with a bit more functionality or a bit more ease of use in regards to circling and annotating. But you do have functionality on other devices. So an Apple Mac user could use their mouse and circle and scroll and maybe even use their highlighter and drag that over words. So everyone's got a level of functionality over this tool around annotating. So right now you're going to see a couple of things. Let me just activate that. Hi everyone, this is me in the bottom corner. For some learning areas, I know languages love to have, well, maybe don't love to have themselves on video, but it's more a case of it's important that the students see your face and maybe see your expressions and how animated you are, whatever it might be. So for starters, the finished product of this particular demo is that it will embed a video on the bottom right of screen as you see it right now. But we can click on the, if I hover my mouse, and I'll just show you where that is. If I hover my mouse next to my video, just underneath it, you'll see that you do have the ability to turn your mic off. And if you don't want to be in the finished product, you can just click on that button. So I'll actually click mine off so you're not distracted by myself. And next, what we're going to do is we are going to click on record. So now this is where I would start delivering a polished presentation where I'll click record. It's going to count me down. Hi everyone, we are going to look at the circulatory system, and we should know by now that the circulatory system includes the heart, blood tissue and blood vessels. I'm then going to click on the right of screen to animate the next slide. And so in particular diagrams, I can grab my draw tools. I might click on a blue color and I might start talking about how deoxygenated blood enters the inferior and superior vena cava and enters the right atrium, and then the flow goes into the right ventricle and out through the pulmonary arteries. I can then talk about, maybe swap over to red and start annotating over the direction of blood out through the aorta and the rest of it. So all my annotations are being recorded as I've done them, and you essentially just keep going through and narrate the rest of your slides. So this is a great way of pre-packaging a unit of work, and when you are done, you then can click on stop. Now at any time, you can go back, press replay, and what you'll see is those annotations take place. So if I now exit this area, and I can obviously go back and preview any of my slides. So I press stop, I can preview any of my slides. If I now close this window, what you end up with is a whole bunch of little audio files that are embedded on each slide. You can see on the bottom right-hand corner, the audio files. Now you can actually send this off to students. However, when they get it, the issue is they're going to see these annotations already on screen, which may be something you don't want, because a PowerPoint will just preview anything that you've put on there. So a student can play the PowerPoint and they'll hear those annotations and, they'll hear the audio, but they'll see the annotations already on screen. But it's not until we actually then export the video or export to video on this particular tab. So again, looking at the recording tab, we export the video and it'll prompt you to say, all right, video size 1080, record timings, and I'm just going to leave all of them as default and click on create video. Okay, and then I'll paste that somewhere where I can grab access to it. So you can then say that, and the finished product becomes MP4, complete with narrations and annotations as was previewed when we first started. So anytime I can go back into the record slideshow and I can still press play and tweak and stop, and I can fast forward to the next slides and maybe re-shoot a section. But essentially you're in and out, but the finished product is never a PowerPoint, the finished product is a video. So much like earlier when I mentioned that the finished product should just go up on Connect and or your OneDrive to be shared. Okay, so there is a look at recording tab. For some schools and some people who are watching this this particular webinar today, you may see a publish to stream option, and Stream is an in-house almost like a video streaming service that's offered through Office 365, and this will actually save the PowerPoint as a video and upload it to Stream. It will likely, depending on the length of your video, send you an email when it's finished processing. The education department schools currently don't have Stream available, but I just thought I'd point that out for those of you who are at the Catholic schools and private independent schools who potentially have a publish to stream option. So you can probably take one step out of the equation. That essentially just lets you take the finished product and put it online, whereas most of the education department staff are going to need to export the video and then physically copy a link or upload that video to a location to be able to share it with students.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, cool.
We've had quite a few people asking, do you have any advice on keeping the videos files small?
Well, the file size within PowerPoint isn't maybe as small as other tools. Like I know that some schools are using the Windows and I think G button or B button to launch the Xbox recorder screen capture tools. But just I would say where possible, if you've got slides that are 40 slides in a slide deck and you're covering lots of content, really just consider breaking that up into bite-sized chunks. So, for instance, I did originally have 40 odd slides in this deck, and I could have actually broken the slides up so that I am only shooting 3 or 4 minute videos and uploading those. And most times psychologically, when people see that they are about to watch a 3 or 4 minute video, they're okay with that, and they'll actually take on the content a lot better than, for instance, them clicking on a video that they can see goes for half an hour. So break it up. In terms of Office 365 and your OneDrive location and or Connect, the file sizes are generally a size that is too big to be emailed, so you're going to have to put them in OneDrive and or Connect to share them. So Steve, you want to add any more to that in terms of your thoughts on file size?
No, I think that's good. You can compress the media, can't you, in one of the options? Yes.
Yeah, so cool. The compression of media, I'll look at the file tab. Oops, sorry. Okay, so on this particular PowerPoint, if you are one of those people that have grabbed high resolution photos from the web or even from your own camera, So you can imagine some people have actually made PowerPoint slides using 4 or 5 megabyte pictures that are from a phone. Then 10 of those photos all of a sudden makes a 40 megabyte or 50 megabyte file, which is probably the resolution within them is way too high. That's possibly required for display. So under the file option, you'll see that there is an info tab. So there's a couple of features that are worth looking at here. The first one is, as Steve mentioned, the compressed media will let you select a resolution that is high enough. Obviously, you choose a lower resolution, you get a smaller file. But even if I was to check on high resolution, you'll see that it's already compressed. And if file size was a massive issue, you can go down to 720, which still gives you a really good resolution anyway. But what it will do is just compress that video into a smaller format. You may lose a little bit of resolution, but that is one area to look at. The other one, which also a relatively good feature to get in the practice of using, is under the review tab, you'll see a check accessibility option. So there's two things that I like to develop in terms of my pattern of making PowerPoints. One is what Steve alluded to a second ago, which is the compression of media, which will shrink those photos to be high enough resolution for display. But also this check accessibility. And this is a great tool to even push and press our kids to start using. And so what happens is that if I click on the accessibility to the right of screen, you'll see that maybe some of my photos are missing alternative text, which generally is a text that you add to describe what's in the photo. And that's for people with vision impairment. Sometimes you'll see that there are a warning that the font size is too small, or that for students who make it a habit of putting text on top of photos and the resolution's poor, it will scan that and just make mention of the fact that it's a bit of a no-no to do that, and people with vision impairment can't see it, so we'll make recommendations. And you can see how it's a very, very clever tool that give you recommendations of how to fix, and then you can read more about making documents more accessible. So both staff and students should make themselves aware of that. The other one, which I might just add to this, and sorry, Steve, is there any other questions you want me to answer before I just look at a couple more features?
No, we'll come to them at the end. Thanks, Steve.
Okay, so this animation here also comes from a new feature under the Insert tab, and it comes from 3D models. And if you select online sources, a box appears and there is a whole bunch of models that are 3D in their creation and in their design, and then there's an animated for education. So within here, do yourself a favor, have a look at the models. There are some things in terms of volcanoes and water cycles and a whole bunch of tools. And I've obviously grabbed the animated heart video. And when you hover on that video, I can spin it around in any sort of dimension. So if I was to go to my screen recording now and capture a video of this, I can quickly click on my screen capture, start recording me spinning this heart around, talking about the various elements of it. So quite clever in the way it's been put together. So we're going to start seeing explosion of 3D models that are going to be embedded in a lot of products that are within Microsoft Office 365. The only other one which is probably worthwhile mentioning as well is that if you've got the latest version of PowerPoint and possibly even a couple of models old, you also have an always use subtitles, and this is fantastic for when you're teaching kids in with ESL. So English is a second language. So if I can speak in English and I might choose to have the subtitles in Indonesian, which seems to be popular in WA schools. So when I use subtitles and I've got it ticked, then I can play that from the beginning. And you essentially as a teacher are presenting and those words are appearing on screen. Now, I know a teacher last week that I helped was looking at a solution around having live captioning recording, and she pretty much went to insert screen capture and was capturing her entire desktop, but then launched a PowerPoint, and much like I'm doing right now, started recording the screen where she was annotating and talking, and then these subtitles were appearing up at the very top, captured in another language. So some great tools around that as well. I'll cancel out of that presentation. I'll discard that. So always subtitles, and that is under the slideshow tab, and it's just a new feature to the right of that panel. So we're normally used to coming into here and selecting beginning or from current, so you're in the right space. You'll see that if you've got the latest or one of the latest versions of PowerPoint. So in essence, look guys, we've got some videos under to share with you under the umbrella of standard education. What we've done is put together a remote learning with Office 365 playlist. So a link to this particular playlist will be shared with you. And in that playlist is recording your screen PowerPoint. It's essentially, this video of the webinar will be recorded and placed online for you to watch at a future time. But for those of you who are looking to just get the snippets or the important parts out and share it with people who maybe haven't had a chance to come along today, please go ahead and share this whole entire playlist with them. You can focus your attention on the PowerPoint screen recording and narrate and annotate. The other one I spoke with Sarah about earlier before this started, which seems to be getting a lot of attention, is with staff who have ended up at home and have lost access to a photocopier. Do yourself a big favour and download Microsoft Lens to your computer and or your smartphone, and it will give you an opportunity to convert anything that's on paper into PDF back into Word. So a document that's been printed off and that's the only format you've got it in, it will actually scan items and convert things back into Word, complete with tables and as much formatting as possible. So definitely recommend having a look at this playlist, and we're adding to this constantly to help people in education. So thanks to Solutions IT for offering this afternoon, and to Steve and Sarah who've been moderating the background. It sort of like concludes our presentation on PowerPoint, and we look forward to helping you. So right now we'll stop and see if there's any questions that have come through from the Q&A.
Excellent overview, Steve. Thanks. There's quite a few people have said they're not seeing the recording option in PowerPoint. So I think that might be you don't have the up-to-date version. So can you just recap how you find that under options?
Cool. I will also, I'll show that again right now, but I will say that I've actually wrapped that up in this particular video as well for narrating and annotating using PowerPoint. So yeah, I said earlier that the recording tab isn't visible to some people. So to make it active and to be able to see it, you need to go over to File across the right left-hand side, and then scroll down to Options. Okay, when the PowerPoint Options tab appears, you're going to see a Customize ribbon option halfway down that list, and you will need to make your take your attention over this way, where on the right of this panel we're going to see a recording tab. So many people haven't had this tab activated, but simply checking that and clicking OK makes that visible. So the schools who don't have a stream option just don't have that option appear, but you'll see that within it I've also got screen recording, screenshots, and some other options, exporting to video. And of course, where we focused was the record slideshow.
Thank you. You may find that you don't actually have that recording tab. If that's the case, then best thing you can do is go to office.com and try and download the app. But if your school or the department manages your computer, you might just need to check with them. It hasn't rolled out to everyone yet.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you also have any ideas on if someone's taken a video on an iPhone, can you bring that into PowerPoint?
Yeah, any video that's been done from anywhere you can bring into PowerPoint, and the exporting the video will actually just wrap up. So if I was to have a slide here with some narrations on the beating heart, and then I put in a new slide and I embedded video into that particular slide, it will actually grab, I might just quickly see if I've got something I can put into that space. And if I don't, I won't spend too much time looking for it. But here we go. So here we go. It's an MP4 file. Oh, there's an MP4 file on Lens or the recording tab. I'm going to drag the MP4 file onto here and embed that. So here's my video. So if I was to drag this video and I'll resize it and I export this particular PowerPoint using the recording tab, export the video, it will give me the first slide for 5 minutes and then roll into the video. So the finished product is a video inside a video. You know, it's sort of cheating that you can piece together videos a little bit. You could possibly have a whole bunch of separate videos and put them on individual slides, export, and that will piece them all together. Just be aware of any copyright rules and stuff, depending on where you've sourced that video before you put it online somewhere. So, but yes, is the answer to that question. Steve, any more?
No, there's just a couple that I'll answer privately. I think that's covered it really well. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, look for the resources. Thanks, Sarah.
No, go on. Sorry, say what you were going to say.
So I was just going to say, it'd probably be good to wrap up and just make mention through all the sessions, depending on whatever we're covering, whether it be OneNote or Teams. We are really trying to drive as many teachers as possible to make their way to education.com, education.microsoft.com, and sign in at the top right of the screen. When you've signed in, you'll see there are courses there on everything that, you know, we've obviously shot videos and got a playlist going, but you'll see there are courses that you can do on PowerPoint, on OneNote, on Sway, Forms, Teams and the like. So we really encourage everybody to make your way there and get up to speed with all the online PD on offer. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve, and thanks, Stephen. Just like to reiterate that everything will be available on our Solutions IT site in the news section. So I will have the YouTube channel that was referred to earlier, and also all of Standout Education's links that they've put up today as well. And you can also find all the recordings from all the previous sessions up there too. I'd just like to also point out that we're just putting up some new sessions for next week. There's, I think, 2 available or 3 available. I just put up just previous to this webinar, and there'll be another couple going up as well. So keep an eye on the events section of our site, because that's where all of that information is kept. Just like to take this opportunity again to say thank you very much, and yeah, we'll see you possibly next week. Or thank you.